Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking with Rebecca Abel. Rebecca, it's great to connect with you, CEO and founder of Dvine cookies, which are incredible cookies. Cookies are, I would say, one of my biggest vices, and I love your cookies. So we're going to talk a lot about starting a business and entering into a space that some may see that is very crowded. But before we get started, as a business coach, I work with people all over the globe, and I love this podcast because as a business coach, I work with people who are successful but stuck. I get them unstuck. I get to have guests on this show like you to help get people unstuck. I believe people learn through stories. And so in your business right now, Rebecca, where's a place that you've been stuck and how did you get unstuck?
Well, the business I'm in has several challenges. Food manufacturing, I don't know if I could have picked a harder business, but I've been stuck in several different places. One, with having the wrong people in the wrong seats.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I constantly have to evaluate. And I find once I get the right people in the right seats, that's instantly, a boost for me to get unstuck. There's also been times that I've been stuck just getting in my own way of fear because this is a very high risk business. And, if I get stuck in fear, it prevents my growth. So I constantly have to kind of reframe my thoughts and stay out of fear, even though it's a very scary business. You're always one client away from, something great or something disastrous.
Yep.
And so, it's about, the people and my own head.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's two thoughts on that. It's amazing when you get people in the right seats, how everything else rises and the whole frequency and vibration of the business just really just kind of begins to change. And I think everybody appreciates when you get people in the right seats, and everybody appreciates when you get rid of toxic people. And because they can start to kind of really come to work and enjoy themselves more. And, I work with a lot of people, from salespeople, managers, C-level execs, owners. Fear is a big through line of a lot, especially in today's adjusting market. What I suggest a lot of times is making sure, Think Community, we talk about this a lot on the show, is kind of making sure that we're recalibrating through the day, right? So we can kind of catch ourselves kind of pre-fear, pre-burnout, and almost using our calendar to say, okay, I gotta take a 2-minute walk at like 11 o'clock every day or 3 o'clock every day to make sure that I can just kind of regulate myself. So any thoughts on that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I have had to kind of put together a whole kind of self-care routine of daily meditating and yoga and really conscious thinking to keep my head very clear. Because there's a lot that comes at me that can put me in fight or flight. And so through meditation and just really taking care of myself and putting my own mental and personal health first, it sets me up in a much better position to handle all the things that come at me that can be very scary.
Yeah.
So,
well said. All right, let's talk about the business. So I'm kind of fascinated by your business because, if you just go to the grocery store and you look at the cookie aisle, there are so many options. As you drive around, there's so many cookie stores. You can go online, there's even more. And I think a lot of people who would have a dream to start a cookie company may look at that and say, I'm not entering that space. And so what was it that got you to enter the space, and what was it about cookies?
Yeah. Well, I entered 6 years ago when the cookie boom was just starting. It was like cupcakes from a decade before. So I could see a trend on the coasts of new startups. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a baker. I'm not a food person at all. I am an entrepreneur that likes to find an opportunity and could see this trend. And I went with a gut feeling that I had because for my entire life, I've been looking for the right growth opportunity. I own other businesses, but was always looking to create something and always looking to do something product based. So went with an intuition. A a strong one that I kind of had a knowing that this was what I was supposed to do, and took a big risk, because even 6 years ago, there was some competition, nothing like there is today. But I took a different approach, because there's a lot of cookie shops and there's a lot of online companies. I knew right off the bat that I wanted to be a wholesaler. So I don't view myself as a retail cookie brand. You'll barely see me on social media. I'm a business to business brand. So what I could see is there wasn't a lot of competition, and still is not a lot of competition in that space. So I think it's about, you can have a saturated market in certain parts of the market, but you've got to find an area that doesn't have competition up the wazoo. And that's the space I'm focused on. It's a much higher barrier to entry. So you can't start a food manufacturing company. It's a much bigger barrier to entry than just starting a cookie company. And I always wanted manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And so what was it, describe the manufacturing world and the wholesale world?
It's all about automation. It's a large investment. So, it takes a lot of risk, because, here I have a lot of loans, and had to put in a lot of personal finances to be able to enter that space. So it's a world that's very secretive. There's just not information on how to do it. So I did it through a lot of trial and error, and made dozens of mistakes. It was always one step forward, two steps back. But the consultants out there in the manufacturing space are consultants that have worked with a Pepperidge Farms or a Nabisco. There's very few consultants that have worked with manufacturing startups. And so, like I said, I had to figure it out on my own. There wasn't the information. But because of this, it also made me feel comfortable that there's this very large barrier to entering a manufacturing space. So it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. But I always wanted a big, scalable, growth company.
Yeah. Let's talk about, thank you for that. Well, congratulations on what you've built. It's really incredible. Let's talk about automation. I think a lot of companies coming into COVID, if we just go back a few years, realize that the systems and the processes and the automation of things that they really weren't up to par. And companies, I think, are looking at it completely differently today than they did in the past. And those newer entrepreneurs who enter new spaces with ideas, partners that understand operations and understand the technology and understand automation systems and processes, they can really jumpstart the business. And so, can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. Unfortunately, I didn't have any partners in the beginning, and I still don't. So having a partner, somebody that really knows the business, I would say is key, because I didn't have it. That's where all my mistakes came in. So there's been several instances that I've ordered the wrong piece of equipment that just doesn't work at all. I've ordered machines that cost 10 times the cost of other similar machines. So yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have partnered right from the get-go with somebody that truly understood automation to avoid a lot of those mistakes. But it's just challenging. They're not just hanging out there to be found. So yeah, it's a difficult business. Food manufacturing, like I said, it's the hardest thing. I never would have imagined it being as difficult as it is. But it's something that I'm passionate about and have a vision, and I've always had a vision for what this company will be.
Yeah.
And I've just gone with that.
That's great. When you look at Ford, and he didn't necessarily completely invent the assembly line, but he really brought it to what it needed to be. The assembly line went from 12 hours to 93 minutes when he was putting things in. So, systems and processes, automation are key. I want to tap into you, the entrepreneur. Are they born, or are they, created?
I feel like for me, I was born this way. As a 5-year-old, I was ready to be an adult, and I just can remember from the earliest age being ready to start a company.
Yeah.
And starting mini side hustles. So when I was a little kid, I went door to door trying to ask people if I could wash their cars. I did whatever I could to start a business and got a
Yeah.
lot of rejection. So I ended up starting a pop can business. So I would have my parents take me to art fairs or to parks, and I would collect cans. And, I loved coming up with something to make money. I thought it was fun and I wanted independence. So for me, I was born with the inclination, but I've been training myself for years of how to handle, smaller businesses, the stress of it. So it's a little bit of both,
Yeah.
but it's in my blood.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were going door to door and, the car wash and the Coke cans, who inspired you at that age?
Well, neither of my parents were entrepreneurs. I don't know. Nobody really around me was an entrepreneur either. I had this desire to create something big. So I don't remember anybody or anything in particular, but that's why I say I was born like this, because it was just always inside of me and something that I always knew that I wanted.
Yeah.
Similar to you, I've read a little bit about your stuff. You knew that you wanted, something when you were young, and
Yeah.
we're
I
also
just knew. I knew. Yeah. And, and yeah, it was kind of like an inner knowing. And I mean, my dad was an entrepreneur and a lot of people in my family were entrepreneurs, but it was still just kind of like, I just kind of had this knowing of what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I relate to that. I'm grateful for it. I have this like innate drive, but yeah, I had the vision when I was as early as I can remember of building a big company.
Yeah. It's great. Define big. What does big mean? I think today, it's like, people define success and big differently. It's like my business. I work with people all over the globe. I have 7 virtual people that assist me, but I've got this global business, and really it's just me. I'm the only business coach, but I have a great support team, and it's amazing. I love it. And so, but I think 25 years ago, I couldn't do it because the technology wasn't there. The ability to promote wasn't there. So define success in big today.
Well, there's a couple different pieces to it. So obviously there's the financial size that I aspire to grow to, but it's really more about impact. So I want a company big enough to have an impact on as many people as possible. I'd love to start a nonprofit arm of this business, doing mentorships and incubating other future small businesses. I'd love to have scholarship programs. And, there's some major challenges in the food business for barrier to entry and for barrier to scale. And so big is having the ability to impact and help other small and medium-sized businesses to grow as well.
Yeah. I resonate with that a lot. To me, it's one of the reasons I do this podcast. We can touch people all over the world that we may never be able to meet, or that may never work with me, but yet they can get something from me. They can get something from you, and it's incredible. And an impact it's a big piece. It's a big piece that drives me too. It's a big piece. The foundation, I resonate with that. I'm actually launching in a couple weeks another coaching arm of it's a separate business, and I have a business partner for this one, and it's only for 16 to 28-year-olds, Rebecca.
Wow.
And it's only for people who are in high school, college, med school, graduate school, trade school, people who worked right out of college. And it's teaching them all the life, personal branding, and career things that they don't teach in college.
That's great.
Really bringing practical. We're actually going to have guest speakers every Wednesday, so maybe you'll come and speak on one of them. But it's good. But and it's a monthly type of coaching program. But it's to make a really big impact. So yeah, so I appreciate that. So fast forward, 10 years.
Sure.
What's the impact that Rebecca Abel, the entrepreneur, has had on, your piece of the world?
Yeah. Well, I like to inspire people to take a risk and push people to grow.
Yeah.
And so I'm viewing that my impact is to work with as many people as possible by mentorship and incubation and just being somebody to give some friendly advice.
Yeah.
but I'd like to help as many people as possible and eventually not be working in the for-profit world, but be having I've founded nonprofits in the past. I can see myself going the nonprofit route once I've built, and eventually, my goal is to sell this company. I want to focus on doing things where I'm giving back.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Talk a little bit about that from a what does it feel like in your soul to give back?
It feels like my calling. It feels like what, again, I'm supposed to do. It's something that obviously makes me feel good, but I feel like the learning that I've done and the pushing of myself that I've done to learn and grow how to do something, that I have a lot to give in just free advice, and I'm the type of person that I will give as much free advice as possible because I view it as my contribution to the world, and that, everything comes full circle. I need help and advice myself. And so, you give what you get. And so, this is not to get something back, but it's to just give that energy to the world, to just, help give as much as I have. I'll be as generous of myself and my soul and my spirit as I can afford to be. And, I have a lot to give.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. To somebody who's listening right now, who is, business or anything is not as intuitive, they have kind of an entrepreneurial element to them. Maybe it's, 100%, maybe it's something that they need a business partner in, but they can't seem to get to their calling. How does somebody figure out with that? You've talked about your calling and your purpose in this. How does somebody who it doesn't innately kind of sit there, how do they get there?
Well, the biggest thing to me is to give yourself a lot of time to be still. So I think that a lot of people don't know what their calling is or what they want because they're flooded with stimulation, our phones, our TVs, the news, talking to friends. In order to find that, you have to be silent. I really feel strongly about that. And I think, I talk to a lot of people about what they want for themselves. And I'm always shocked when they have no idea. But it's truly, my opinion is because they haven't really taken the time to think about it. So you've got to take a lot of time to be still and to take away all of these distractions to really figure that piece out. And you've also got to be realistic about your talents and abilities and what you're not good at, and avoid putting yourself in a situation where it's not a fit. You don't want to be in the wrong seat yourself. So getting quiet and getting honest with yourself about your talents, your abilities, what you're not good at is a big part of then fitting that into the right opportunity.
Yeah, it's great. How do you get still?
I spend a lot of time meditating. So I take 20 minutes of every morning that I have a whole ritual. And then I try to just turn off my phone. I don't have any social media apps. I'm barely on social media. I try to not watch much TV. So I take away a lot of the things that I would find would distract me, and try to just be. So whether it's walks, I don't listen to music in the car. So the car is also a really good time for me to be still with my thoughts. I don't have music on. I'm not on the phone. I'm just being.
Yeah, that's great.
So, but it's been a conscious effort because I have the type of personality that, I was checking apps. I was checking my email constantly. So I have to put in certain barriers to compulsively doing those things that take away that still time.
Yeah. That's really important. I do. Do you do TM by chance?
I don't. I've tried that, but I do more mindfulness and mantra meditations.
Yeah, I only asked because you said 20 minutes. So I do a couple different meditations, but TM is one of them. But it's the first thing I do for the last 25 plus years every morning. It's a game changer to me. And I agree with you. Being still, I think it's so hard for people to figure out how to be still. Just going back to what we talked about in the beginning of this podcast, really just with intention, putting time in your calendar to recalibrate and really put kind of your wellness, wellness first. I love it. It's great. All right, let's do a quick speed round. You ready?
Yes.
All right. A book, a TED Talk, or an article that's had the biggest impact on you?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Harvard Business Review. So
Okay.
I read that religiously. I get a lot of ideas on that, both the magazine and then I buy the annual books.
Yeah. No, those are really good. Yeah. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Um, that's a tough one. I think don't go shoe shopping without shoes. So work a lot with Jim Hiller, and he says that don't cut something off before you have the replacement.
Yeah. Good. And last question. What is one thing that everybody can do to kind of tap into their inner entrepreneur?
Silence your cell phones. Get away from the stimulation. Just sit with yourself and daydream about what's your ultimate life. So those daydreams are to me part of your calling.
Yeah.
And so yeah, get silent, get quiet, and just be one with yourself.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Rebecca, this was great. I really appreciate your time. Tell everybody where they can buy your cookies, where they can, just everything about you and where they can connect with you.
Yeah. Well, we're a private label manufacturing company predominantly. So we make all the cookies for Beyond Juice or Detroit Wing or a big company called Sugar Wish out of Colorado. So you may be eating our cookies and not realize it. We do have a new line that's coming out in Meijer stores. But a lot of the times you'll be eating our cookie and you won't know it. So if you have a good cookie, chances are it's Dvine.
And if people want to get a hold of you, your website is
dvinecookies.com.
It's great. Rebecca, thanks. This was great. I loved connecting with you. I loved hearing your story. Think community. I just want to extract a couple of things that Rebecca shared, which I think are really critical in my life, but in business as well, which is the power of being still, the power of silent time, the power of limiting distractions, but also with intent, really kind of making a conscious effort and making appointments with yourself and committing to whether it's driving without music so you can daydream. I love what you say. Your daydreams are part of your calling. Find that space. I've been thinking about taking my apps, social apps off my phone because I find myself scrolling too much and I don't want to. I'd rather be reading or something. So I think you've inspired me to kind of take them off my phone and just use them when I'm, on my computer. So thanks for that. But whatever works for you, Think community, do what you need to do to get the amount of time you need to be still in your day. It's so important for your growth. Rebecca, this is great. I really appreciate you taking time to be on the show. Any last thoughts?
Thoughts are our feelings, our thoughts are everything. So really, get conscious of your thoughts.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Think community. Thank you so much. You can check out Rebecca's site, or you can check me out if you need anything at johndwaskin.com. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.